a medical topic, we will do our best to do that for you. But all you have to do is send us a text at 720-201-8585, and that comes right to my phone, and I promise you we'll get your question answered or try to cover your topic the best we can. With that, we'll welcome Dr. Coates. Doc, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
You bet, man. I always look forward to these days with you and going through a lot of these medical issues that we're able to discuss. Well, as I mentioned, we did get a text question in about this pneumococcal vaccine, pneumonia, I guess. First of all, kind of tell us what that is as far as that strain of pneumonia, who it affects, and then let's get into that vaccine of like what that's about, who you recommend it for, and is there anybody that shouldn't take it?
Yeah, pneumococcal vaccine is exactly what it sounds like. It's for the pneumococcal pneumonia, and that's an aggressive pneumonia that can kill you very rapidly. So we give this vaccine to children under the age of 5. It's part of their routine vaccine. So if you have a child, they're usually well vaccinated against this. And then we give 2 boosters after the age of 50. So if you're over the age of 50 and you haven't had a pneumococcal vaccine, it's a good idea to get those 2 doses of the pneumococcal vaccine. There's 2 doses a year apart. Now, the other people that we tend to get this for is if somebody has had a splenectomy. So if you were in a car wreck or an accident, had to have your spleen removed, we immediately give somebody the pneumococcal vaccine because, unfortunately, without a spleen, it's hard to kill encapsulated organisms, and so the pneumococcal pneumonia is extremely dangerous in someone with a splenectomy. So if you've had your spleen taken out for surgical reasons, medical problem, or an injury, then we recommend to get the pneumococcal vaccine early. So that's pretty much what we use the pneumococcal vaccine for.
Right. Now, does regular pneumonia turn into this pneumococcal, or is this pneumococcal a separate strain that people...
No, it's a different bacteria that causes this type of pneumonia. There's a lot of different pneumonias. You can be caused from viruses, from bacteria, and this is just a strain that tends to be very, very deadly, unfortunately. It comes on very rapidly. When someone gets pneumococcal pneumonia, I had a case when I was a resident. I think I was in my 1st or 2nd year. It was pretty early on in my residency program. And we saw a guy in the afternoon, and he said that morning he felt fine, went to work. About 10 o'clock, started having fever, chills. Decided to go home at lunch, got us an appointment at 2 o'clock. By 2:30 when we saw him, we had to put him in the hospital, and he was very, very ill. So it's amazing that it was very influential to me to how fast these people get really, really sick.
Wow.
So it's a pretty bad pneumonia. It comes on extremely rapidly. That's why we have a specific vaccine for it.
Mm-hmm. And real quick, what are some of the symptoms of that particular strain?
Yeah, usually it's fast onset because people felt fine the day before, and now they have fever, chills, body aches. They're coughing so bad they feel like they can't breathe. That's usually a sign of pneumococcal pneumonia. Like I said, it comes on extremely fast. It's not someone who says, this has been going on for 4 or 5 days. This is something that they felt fine just a few days ago, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they feel extremely bad. That could be a sign of pneumococcal pneumonia.
All right. Well, once again, if you have any questions for Dr. Coates, just send us our text here on our Better Health text line, 720-201-8585. Well, each month, and we do this several times throughout the years, throughout the year, I should say, that there's these different health awareness months, and usually each month, sometimes there are several health issues. But one I noticed in doing some research here for the show, it's Colorectal Health Awareness Month here in March. And Dr. Coates, I'll just let you open with that as overall colorectal health. How big a problem is that today in our society?
Yeah, colon cancer is an extremely big problem in our country. It's the 2nd leading cancer in men and women. If you take the 2 overall combined, it's number 2. It's number 3 in both, but we don't get prostate cancer in women, and men don't get breast cancer very often. So therefore, it is a number 2 overall cancer, and it's extremely common. You know, unfortunately, I'll diagnose many people with colon cancer this year. The good news is we have a lot of different ways to get early screening, and that seems to be the key. You know, we moved the screening down from 50 to 45 in order to catch more of these cancers before they start to spread. But colorectal cancer, unfortunately, can get very serious. You know, if you don't get your screening, and you end up coming in with black tar-like stools that have been going on for a while, and you're real tired and anemic, and it ends up being a colon cancer. A lot of these, unfortunately, will have spread and be stage 3 or 4, where the treatment regimen is not so good. When it's either stage 0, 1, or even in the early 2 stages, most of the time we have ways to treat this. And if it's caught early on a colonoscopy, then most of the time these things are very simple. And you simply go in, remove that section of colon with the cancer, and for a lot of people that can be a cure. So that's the reason we preach these screenings, and I know nobody likes these screenings. We get complaints every single day that I go to work. I know I'll get some today. It's just part of the job. People come in and they say, oh, I'm not doing that as an exit only. Well, there's other options now. We have Cologuard. And Cologuard is simply a box that we mail to your house. You set it on the toilet, you unbox it, set it on the toilet, poop in the box, fold it back up, put it back in the mail, and then they can determine with a pretty good degree of accuracy what your risk of colon cancer is. And these Cologuards are about 90% effective at screening for colon cancer. Just because you get a negative Cologuard, does that mean that you can't get colon cancer? Absolutely not. If you start having blood in your stool or black tar-like stools, then we need to get a colonoscopy. It's still the gold standard, and it's what I would prefer everybody get. But a lot of people refuse to get a colonoscopy, so therefore Cologuard is the next best option. We also have a new blood test, and this blood test picks up over 80% of the colon cancers. Unfortunately, it's not widely accepted by insurance yet, and it's expensive. You know, I think that when the rep came to my office, it was about $800 and some for the blood test. But it's another valuable way of screening for colon cancer. And is it as good as the Cologuard? No. Is it as good as colonoscopies? Absolutely not. But it's certainly better than nothing. You know, for the person that doesn't want to poop in the box, and there are people like that. You know, I'm not mailing my poop anywhere, and I'm not, you know, I get those complaints frequently. You know, and they don't understand this is a potential life-saving procedure. When they get every single patient that I've diagnosed colon cancer in comes in and regrets not getting a colonoscopy. They say, man, I wish I would have done that earlier. And unfortunately, you can't go back. If you have stage 3 or stage 4 colon cancer, you don't get to go back and get a do-over or a mulligan. You know, it just doesn't happen. You have to deal with what you have now. So it's the best way to address colon cancer, which is why we have these colon awareness months, is early intervention. We need early screening. If you have a family member with colon cancer, then you need to get screened 5 years prior to the earliest diagnosis in your family. So if somebody got colon cancer at 45, then you don't get to wait till 45. You have to start screening before age 40.
Gotcha. As long as the prep, you know, I mean, good night. It seems like the first time I did it, which has been a while back, you know, it seemed like an antifreeze jug. It seemed how big it was. But now, the last time I did it several years back, it was like 2 smaller bottles. Are they getting better with the prep, or it doesn't really matter?
it's tough just getting all that liquid down. It's a lot of fluid. Now, more recently, they have where you take a whole bunch of pills with two smaller glasses of water, and that's a little easier to get down, easier prep. But all of them, after you take this stuff, you're going to be on the pot for a long time, and that's usually what people complain about the most. Is, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much stuff came out of me. And it's just I kept thinking I was done. I got off the phone, I had to run back. I always tell people in today's climate, just take a tablet in there and watch some shows because you're going to be there a while. Luckily with advances in technology, when I first did my first one, we didn't have those types of options. You took a couple of magazines and you thought that'd be enough, and then pretty soon you've read every article and you've gone through every page twice, and you're bored off the mind because you can't get away from the plot part and go get another magazine. If you didn't bring something else to read, you were stuck there. But luckily with the tablet, you can take this tablet in there, set it on the ground, watch a couple of shows on Netflix or whatever, and usually that will help occupy the time where it doesn't seem so bad. But the prep is by far the worst part. People complain about the colonoscopy, but when they actually get it done, you rarely hear anybody complain about the procedure because I really didn't know anything. They put an IV in me and knocked me out. I woke up and they told me I was done. So, usually that's how it goes. You don't really notice hardly anything. So the procedure is not a huge deal. Everybody thinks it is, but once they get it done, they realize that wasn't very bad. But the prep, everybody complains about the prep, and when you had to do, multiple colonoscopies, you dread the prep more than the colonoscopy itself.
Absolutely. Once again, you're listening to Better Health with Dr. Lewis Coates. Blood test. Now, the PSA, and we said this, I think, last week or the week before, where you said, not all cancers show in blood work. The PSA, that's something that would show most of the time if you've got a problem with colon cancer.
Well, the PSA is going to be for prostate.
For prostate, okay, yeah.
So the PSA is a blood test that is for prostate cancer, not for colon cancer.
Okay.
The colon cancer test is, I believe it's called the Shield test. I have to look that up. But it looks for a specific DNA that is a sign of a precancerous growth in the colon. And it was approved last year for screening for colon cancer. So because this test is in its infancy stages, unfortunately, it's not approved by insurance very much. And so, you don't want to have to pay for something like that because it can be extremely expensive. Now, the blood test, I did look up the info when it was approved, and it was a little over 80% accurate at screening for colon cancer. It's looking for a DNA that floats in the blood that is a sign of a precancerous or cancerous growth in the colon. And so that's how it works. So usually if somebody has a positive blood test when they get a colonoscopy, they'll either have polyps, which are probably precancerous, or they'll have colon cancer if that test is positive. Now the problem with Cologuard and the blood test is just because it's positive doesn't mean that you will have something for sure. So if somebody gets a positive Cologuard and we send it for a colonoscopy and it comes back negative, they go, well, it's a Cologuard positive. There are false positives with these tests. So, you shouldn't freak out just because you get a positive test, but it certainly means that getting a colonoscopy now is extremely important because you're in a very high-risk category when that test turns positive. So we need to get that colonoscopy as soon as possible.
Right. I want to mention this so I don't forget, but, when you have a colonoscopy and then they come back and they say, hey, you come back every 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be, that's not just an arbitrary number doctors pull out of the air. They mean come back
hey, we want to repeat this in a year. If it's a very high risk type of polyp, they may say 3 years or 5 years, depending on what they found. So, if you have a strong family history of colon cancer, they may not give you the full 10-year pass. They may say, hey, even though you didn't have any polyps, since you're high risk group, we want to repeat this in 5 or 7 years. That way, if we do find a colon cancer, our goal, if it comes back and it's positive and you have a cancer, is to make sure that we catch it before this cancer spreads somewhere else. So you're in one of those groups of colon cancers where the stage is very low, and we can simply resect that cancer, and hopefully that'll be enough to get rid of this cancer for you.
And that usually will spread if you don't catch it early, right?
Yeah, colon cancer is very commonly spreads. I've lost many of my good friends from colon cancer, unfortunately. People that didn't get screenings done. So, it's extremely important. If you're out there listening, you haven't had a colonoscopy, you're over age 45, get into your doctor and get this test done. If you're adamant that you're not going to let someone do a colonoscopy, then simply order the Cologuard. Insurance usually covers it. They mail it to your house. It's a very simple test. Nobody knows anything about your stool, or who cares? People freak out. The postman knows what's in that box. Who cares? It's that big of a problem if someone else drops it off. It's very simple to mail back in, and we get that simple report. And if your Cologuard is negative, you get to go 3 years usually before you have to get another Cologuard.
Right. Once again, you listen better with Dr. Lewis Coates. And I always say this: if you don't have a great family doc, highly recommend Dr. Coates. You're in that Garland, Wiley, Saxe area there, Plano, Richards, all around there. I'm telling you, if you're looking for a great doc, once again, we highly recommend Dr. Coates. His number is 972-496-6937. Is there a certain age group that you normally see this in, even though you may see it in some younger folks at times?
What, colon cancer?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Most of the people with colon cancer are older, but that doesn't mean they all are. Unfortunately, there's rare cases where people get it, in their 20s, in their 30s. It's when I trained, we thought it was everybody, 60 and above, pretty much, which is why we did the screening at 50. Unfortunately, a lot of people in their 40s are now getting colon cancer, so that's why we've moved the screening age down from 50 to 45. So, it can be any age. If you have blood in your stool, or dark tar-like sticky stools, then that's a sign that there could be blood in those stools, and that would be a sign to go to the doctor. Anytime you have some type of blood in the stool that doesn't resolve, then you need to get a colonoscopy. People always say, what are the symptoms of colon cancer? I hear that a lot. People come in the office. Well, I'm going to know if I have cancer, and that's absolutely not true. Okay. Most people with colon cancer have no symptoms at all. Okay. And by the time they start to have symptoms, usually by then, it's already spread somewhere. And so the symptoms that you get is a change in bowel habits. Okay, maybe you're more constipated, more diarrhea. A lot of times there's blood in the stool, maroon stools, black tar-like stools. You start to get gassy, crampy. Your bowels have trouble emptying. You feel like after you go to the bathroom, you got to go back again. You lose weight without even trying, and you're tired all the time. Those are the most common symptoms of colon cancer. But by the time those symptoms occur, usually it's too late for the simple, hey, we're going to take this thing out and it's all going to be good. By then, you most likely have a stage 3 or even a stage 4 colon cancer where it's spread throughout the body, and it becomes extremely difficult to cure at that point. And a lot of times it's not curable. So if we want to catch it before symptoms occur, which is why we have these awareness months, it's time for us to start getting everybody screened, and let's get this cancer before it has a chance to do anything, and it's very easy to fix at that point.
Yep, absolutely. It seems like our diet has a lot to do with our health. Every time we talk about something, diet comes
address, because I was trained that diet played a tremendous role with colon cancer, and now it looks like it may not be as much of a role as we once thought. It looks to be like it's more genetic, but I still think eating a good balanced diet is a good way to go. Adopting a healthy lifestyle, regular physical activity, keep a healthy weight, balanced diet, avoid alcohol and tobacco in excessive amounts, and get your screenings done. Those are all good advice things to do. How much of a role diet plays in colon cancer is very debatable at this point. Like I said, I was trained that it was absolutely a potential cause, but now the studies seem to be coming out where it doesn't look like diet plays as much of a role as we once thought. However, we're getting more and more colon cancers at younger ages, so you got to think that there's something to do with our diet based on the fact that these things are occurring in a younger age. We just don't have a lot of studies to prove that diet is a direct cause of colon cancer.
Right. It's crazy to me, mind-boggling, actually, when you say that people, I just don't want to get that colonoscopy or whatever, when, the prep's unpleasant, like you said, the procedure's nothing really to most of us, but then you think, well, what's really unpleasant? Colon cancer. That's really unpleasant. So, sometimes you just got to scratch your head and wonder why, people are like, just don't see the importance of getting a good test like a colonoscopy.
Well, they don't think that the colon cancer is going to hit them until they see someone they know with their age or a family member that has colon cancer. Then all of a sudden, that screening doesn't seem so bad. When they see someone going through chemo and radiation, their hair falling out, they're losing weight, they're throwing up all the time, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that. So they come in and they get the screening. But for most people, they don't have a direct person that they see with this colon cancer, so therefore they think, oh, this isn't going to affect me, and I'm not getting this done because it's uncomfortable or it's inconvenient, or I don't want people seeing me naked. I hear that one a lot too. I don't want people, seeing my butt naked. I can assure you that no one cares.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
When you do these things every day, to them, it's not a big deal. Okay? And but we need to get better screening in this country, and I don't know what the answer is. Hopefully this blood test is when it's widely adopted and insurance is covering for it. If people come in for their annual and that blood test is positive, I'm sure that at that point they'll start to think, oh my gosh, this is hitting me, I need to get this screening done ASAP. So there'll probably be a time, as this test becomes over time, blood tests always come down in price. When they first come out, they're extremely expensive.
Sure.
But, as it's widely adapted, they don't have to make as much per test, so therefore, these things become more common. So there may be a time where you come in for your annual wellness check, and part of your routine blood is a colon cancer screening test. So, hopefully that day gets here. Probably for our younger generations, that'll be a routine test that everybody does, and colon cancer at that point may drop off the map because of the fact that it's being caught at such an early phase that it's not as big of a factor.
Right. Last 90 seconds here, but as you were describing some of the things with symptoms, and I've heard you say this many times over the years with the show, like, people don't tend to like to describe what's going on with their poop or whatever, and they think it's gross, they're going to gross you out, and you've said this multiple times. There's nothing really you haven't seen or heard, and don't worry about it. That information is crucial to you, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So you shouldn't be afraid to tell the doctor anything about your body. We hear these statements over and over again, and just because you don't talk about bowel movements or urination habits on it's not a normal topic of discussion for most people. We talk about these things on a daily basis, so you're not going to gross us out. You're not going to freak us out. We hear people that are leaking urine, leaking stool all the time, and these are common discussions: diarrhea, constipation, rectal bleeding. All these things don't bother us at all.
Right. Well, Dr. Coates, great information, folks. Hey, look, first of all, if you have not got in for a good annual wellness check, do that, of course. But once again, if maybe you know someone that's going through some of these symptoms and they're just not going to the doctor, but you yourself, once again, get your test and screening done. As Dr. Coates said, catching this early is the key. So, Dr. Coates, appreciate your time, sir. We'll look forward to our conversation next week.
Thanks for having the show. Look forward to being back.
All right, thank you. You've been listening to Better Health with Dr. Lewis Coates. His practice is located at 5915 Murphy Road there in Saxe. The number is 972-496-6937. When you call and mention you heard Dr. Coates here on the show, we appreciate that as well. For Dr. Coates, my name is Scott Watley. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Expressed on the preceding program were those of the speakers and not necessarily those of KAAM, DJRD Broadcasting, or its sponsors.
And then when you die, what happens then? Well, if you have a will, the bank is going to request letters testamentary. Or if you don't, the bank is going to want proof that the person has been approved by the court to have the authority to act on behalf of that account to transfer it either according to the will or under the laws of intestacy.
Listen to Estate Planning Essentials with elder law attorney Michael Cohen. Mondays and Tuesdays at 1 p.m. and Saturdays at 10 a.m. on 770 KAAM.
770 KAAM is your home for classic Christianity with Bob George.
And so today we've got kind of the very opposite of that, where all of the original Christians were all Jews and there was a remnant of Gentiles. Today you've got the majority of Christians that are Gentiles with kind of a remnant of Jews. But the issue is there was a conflict between the two, just like today. Anti-Semitism, and many times I believe is built into the lost man's heart because there's no room for anti-Semitism in the heart of a Christian.
Weekdays on 770 KAAM at 10:30 a.m. and a repeat broadcast at 10:30 p.m. Is there anything parents can do about misbehavior of children from other families in the neighborhood?
Here's today's Dr. Dobson Minute with Dr. James Dobson.
It's a delicate subject indeed. What each block needs is a mother or father who has the courage to say, I want to be told what my child does when he's beyond his own yard. If he's a brat with other children, I would like to know it. If he's disrespectful with adults, please mention it to me. I won't consider it tattling, and I won't resent your coming to me. I hope I can share my insights regarding your children, too. As tough as it is to hear that our kids have misbehaved, because it makes us feel like bad parents, we should open ourselves to that information if it's valid. None of our kids is perfect, and we can know better how to teach them if we keep the lines of communication open and talk honestly to each other as adults and friends.
For more information, visit drdobsonminute.org.
The views expressed on the following program are designed to amplify those of the speaker and not necessarily those of KAAM, DJRD Broadcasting, or its sponsors.
Hello, everybody.
Today's experience, it's Dr. Dave's Devotional Diamond of the Day, also known as DDDDD, is where my daily devotions become some of our spiritual reflections. Sound effects placed throughout the show which have nothing to do with life, but the Bible teaches there's a time to laugh. The review of the goofiness, which proves Jesus is coming back sooner than you think. We hope before this show is over, life lessons for our faith that we can actually use. Probably won't if we sit on our blessed assurance humor that will force you to think, why does this guy have a radio show? Because the Lord said, you, in there, now. And so here I am. Also Bible trivia for faith, and yet somehow real cool prizes, your phone calls, and more.
Living this life, not a receipt.
Talk. My name is Dr. David Spoon. I'll be your host for the next 5,400,000 milliseconds. Get ready for one of the more bizarre experiences on live radio. Here is the key to the show. We don't know what we're doing. We're going to prove that in about 60 seconds. We have no idea what's going to happen. I'm going to prove that in about 45 seconds. And we don't care. But for the next few minutes, I want to talk truth with you. So here we go. We're asking questions about living life as a Christian. That thingy right there. Now listen to everything I'm going to say. It's really important because we have a little bit of a different process going on today. The question that I'm going to ask you is simply this. Did you have an opportunity to bless someone this week? And if not, are you asking God to let you be a blessing? That's the question. Now, watch this. You cannot call in. What? Nope. It will not work. Our phone is not working. If you are listening to this, you are only listening to this on the radio because the streaming is not working, so the apps are not working. Wowzer, bowser. In addition to that, I know. Isn't that sad? Not that we can't fill the show. Watch. Anyway, the point is simply this. You can still text, because I still will get that. You can still send an email, because my phone is hooked up to the internet differently than the situation here at the station. So you can text and you can email. So going back to the question, we're simply going to ask that question. Did you have an opportunity to bless somebody this week? And if not, are you asking the Lord to enable you to be a blessing? I think you get where this one's going. If you're not asking the Lord to enable you to be a blessing, you probably should. Yeah? You think that's a good idea? Yes, it is. Now, knowing that you cannot contact us does not mean that we don't greatly appreciate our very own Sherman Jacob. That's right. Normally, when you get to talk to Sherman Jacob on the telephone, you can't do that today, but normally it just gives you this feeling that you have done your very, very best. Hello.
Thank you, David. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday with no streaming, no phone, internet day today for many people, but is that going to stop us, my friend? Is it? Is it going to stop us?
No, it is not. And yes, happy no internet, no phone Wednesday.
That's right. That's what it is today. But it's not going to stop us because from our perspective, we go forward, don't we? All right. So how are you doing today? Besides that, does it make your day a little different? Does it make it harder, or does it actually make it easier because there's not much you can do? What happens when because you're running shows, you're putting things in there, you and Jennifer are the only people that can make this thing work at all, which I think is really funny, and nobody realizes without Jennifer and Jacob, and if there's no radio show. All right, so bottom line, is it easier or harder when you have stuff like this going on?
I would say both, because right now I can't put any shows in. Other shows I play here on the station can't currently put any new shows in. And but I guess it is a little bit easier. I don't have as much to do, right, answering the phone, but yeah, I would say both.
Okay, that's just kind of curious about that. It just dawned on me. It's like that's got to be awkward for you and then awkward for Jennifer. And I know she's just hanging out trying to get everything together, which we really appreciate. By the way, you guys need to be praying for Jam and Jacob and Jennifer and Don. I think we've made that pretty clear at this point. So there's a couple things I do need to tell you, and these things are super important. So no phone, right? That doesn't mean no show. It just means no phone. No internet in the context of I don't think any of the apps are working. Is that probably correct? Is the KAAM app working, or is it just no streaming?
Yeah, just no streaming right now.
Okay, so might the KAAM app might be working, or maybe not, or we don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think just like car radio or like over the air, anything. Yeah, anything having to do with us meeting internet. It's not working right now.
Okay, and it's going to be a little glitchy because it's running on a backup system, but that doesn't mean you can't listen to it later on in the podcast. It'll all be there. It'll all be recorded. And don't you worry, it'll be a full 90 minutes. I can promise you that. All right, the things that I do need to tell you that are very important is simply this. Tomorrow is the Texas A&M men's basketball Aggies playing at 2 o'clock is their intro to their show, 2:30 is the actual game. So we're going to run a 1:30 to 2 special, a replay special, and then the basketball team will be on there on Thursday. So be aware of that. Don't get caught off guard. We put that information on the website just so you can know that. With that going on and other things taking place, we do encourage you to still be praying for the audience. Why? Because people need prayer. And you are capable of fulfilling that role. Now, it's not overly complex. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, we are commanded to carry one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. One of the ways that you carry the burden is you join people in prayer. Romans 15:30, Paul said, join me in my struggle by praying for me. So we're encouraging you to pray for the audience. And quite frankly, if there's other things that you're attached to in your Christian walk and you really want to contribute, but maybe financially you can't, you can still join that struggle by praying for them. That's a way to do that. So we really encourage that at all levels. So I want to remind you of that. Again, we're going to give an opportunity to try and to do a little bit of a trivia, but they'll have to be answered through email or through text. It's all the only way that we can do it. We're not going to start off with that, but we are going to get to that. In the meantime, you might as well buckle up, because what we're going to talk about is more phenomenal King David writing. I mean, you just love this stuff in the Psalms. For those that do not know, we are in Psalm 62, and we're picking it up at verse 3. And I want you to catch this, because last week we had a call. It was a great call, Sergio, and we went down this really cool road, but I didn't get to teach on this, so now I'm going back to this teaching. Here's what it says, and I want you to remember from a couple of weeks ago, we talked about King David and how sometimes there's an approach that you are dealing with in the Lord that calls for you to be very active, very persistent, very knock-knock, and then there's other times in the Lord where you are called to handle it a little differently. We're going back to what he says in Psalm 62. We'll pick it up with verse 1 and 2, but focusing on verse 3, 4, 5, and 6, it says this: truly my soul silently waits for God. From him comes my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be greatly shaken. We talked about that 2 weeks ago, and just a beautiful, beautiful thing he's writing. He's like, look, my salvation comes from God. He is only he is my rock. And why that's important, and we talked about it, is because a rock is something that's sturdy to stand upon, and God is sturdy for your life. He is steadfast for you. He is immovable. In fact, James chapter 1 says, there is neither variable nor shadow of turning. What that means is when the sun moves and it casts the shadow, if it moves just a little bit of a degree, then the shadow moves. There's no movement in God's shadow. He don't move. He's steadfast. And he's not just steadfast as who he is. He's steadfast as your dad. He's steadfast as your heavenly Father. He's steadfast as your rock, as your stability, as your strength. Yeah, I know. There's a lot of up and down in the world, right? Yes. There's a lot of, if you even watch politics at all, you're going up, down, up, down, up, down. We just call you a yo-yo. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Or call you Duncan. That's a good one. Here's the bottom line. The bottom line is God doesn't move like that. He is stable. He is steady. And even us, let's be honest, sometimes we wear bananas for our shoes. You're thinking, what? Well, sometimes we wear bananas for our shoes because we're walking in flippers. You get it? So we need to recognize our stability comes from the Lord. That's where our stability comes from. So he says this in verse 3. How long will you attack a man? You shall be slain, all of you, like a leaning wall and a tottering fence. Then he's talking about people that are against him. They only consult to cast him down from his high position. They delight in lies. They bless with their mouths, but they curse inwardly. So after David in this situation, and for those that don't understand the situation, he's trying to be very calm while he's waiting for the salvation of the Lord, because people are coming against him, and they're trying to take him out, and they're trying to kill him, and he's just like, oh my goodness, how long is this going to go on? You should all be slain. That's his way of saying, I wish you all would just take a long walk off a short pier. And then he says, they only get together to try and cast people down. They delight in lies. Uh-oh. They bless with their mouth, but they curse inwardly. Uh-oh. What does that mean? Well, that's a lot of stuff right there. First of all, they delight in their lives. Now, there are not many politicians, and not many, I say none, it says not many figures in academia, and not too many in the media or Hollywood that don't fit this description perfectly. They delight in lies. It's the most bizarre thing, and I'm reading in Jeremiah today, in chapter 24 and 25, and it talks about the Lord dropping the sword on people and people losing their minds. Did you ever look at these guys who are in the media and in different elements, and you think what they're talking, or you hear some kind of replay of something, you think, these people seem like they're losing their minds. Guess what? The Lord is the one that's doing it. So amazing. It's so bizarre. And then David goes on to say, he says, these people, they bless with their mouth. In other words, they're trying to come off like, oh, no, we're really great people. Everybody, we love everybody. We love, but inside they're cursing. Boy, I guess that fits the media more than I thought. They might be saying, yeah, everything's great. Everything, they're harboring hate. And I mean hate as in hate for godly things, the people of God, the things of God. These are the woke, ridiculously, culturally facades of our day. You're seeing it on display. And what's happening? They're losing their minds. You're just looking at it going, wow. Wowzer. Right? You know it's true. Don't even try. You know it's absolutely so. And in verse 5 he says this, you know what? My soul, wait silently for God alone. For my expectation is firm. In contrast to people that are, how do I want to say this? Delighting in lies, losing their mind, and full of hate. Put that in any category you want to. In opposition to that, he talks about himself as a follower of Jehovah, as a follower of the Lord God Almighty. And he says, he tells himself, I'm going to wait silently for God. One of the greatest things about the Psalms that I've learned more of in this last year, I've read the Psalms more times than one discussed, is how much self-talk David has going on in the Psalms to himself. And so he's telling himself, wait silently for God. Sometimes you got to say that to yourself. I just want to point that out. I even do that from time to time. I say it out loud to myself. I know God hears it. I know I can hear it. But if I speak it, I hear it in my left and right ear. So I'm hearing it twice. And sometimes you got to say, chill. Just relax. I need to say it to yourself. Remember, David said, why so downcast, O my soul? Put your hope in God. He said that to himself. Okay, well, sometimes you got to say it to yourself. And David's like, wait silently for God. Sometimes you need to remind yourself. You don't just hear it from a preacher. Hallelujah. You don't just hear it on the radio. Well, it must be true because I heard it on radio. You don't just hear it from the television. Sometimes you need to take a deep breath and say to yourself, trust in the Lord. We'll look at our circumstance. It can be overwhelming. I think we all know that. It happens. We look at our situations where they're going, wow, what? Oh, I don't know. And sometimes you got to pull it back and go, slow down. And here's my response to myself, and I even say this to myself, does anything catch God by surprise? No. If he's not surprised and he's with me and for me, why am I freaking? That's just such a great point. Just a great point, right? And so David's like, okay, all right, you know what? My soul, hey, wait silently for God. Just, okay, chill. And then he says this, and I love this. This is why I love this psalm. I mean, if you don't know this psalm, get into this psalm. Psalm 62 is phenomenal. He says, my expectation is from him. I just want to point this out. If you and I have expectation, and we have that gear towards the world, you are going to find nothing but disappointment. If you and I have expectation, and that's geared towards government, you are going to find nothing but disappointment. If you have expectation, and you think that people are going to be the resolution to your issue, you are setting yourself up for deep disappointment. And here's the last one. If your expectation is in you, and not the Lord, you are going to find yourself on the wrong end of the situation. Our expectation needs to be in the Lord. Yes, he uses us. Yes, we work together in concert. But again, without him giving you breath or strength, ability, the ability to reason, think, comprehend, any of that, without God granting that to you, you got nothing. You got zero. And so David's just like, yeah, okay, my soul, you just wait silently for God alone, because my expectation is from him. Oh, my goodness, isn't that beautiful? Wait, we're not done. We are going to take a deep breath here. Got that deep breath? Good. There's your chance to text or to email. I'll give you the text and the email in a second. Here it is. Who cut off the ear of Malchus, the high priest's servant, in the situation of the garden when they were getting to arrest Jesus? Your reference, John 18:10. John 18:10. Who cut off the ear of Malchus, the high priest's servant? And in order to get to us, you can do it two ways. You can text 214-210-8483. That's 214-210-8483. One more time, because we don't have a phone. 214-210-8483. Text only. Or you can send an email. David@hemustincrease.org. David@hemustincrease.org. Now, I am going to send you up to the website, because things do not always change just because there's no phone. What that means? That means we still need help. That's what it means. We appreciate people that have given. We appreciate people that are praying about it. We appreciate people that want to give and cannot give. We ask you to pray for us no matter what the case may be. But if you're able to give, please do so. It would be very helpful. Our scripture for today, Luke 6:38, give and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. That is a promise from the Lord. You have to love that. Check out the giving and other things on the website, hemustincrease.org.
Prayer request?
hemustincrease.org.
Praise report?
hemustincrease.org.
Looking to give to this ministry?
hemustincrease.org.
Confused by what's happening right now?
hemustincrease.org.
hemustincrease.org.
As a duly designated representative of the city, I order you to cease any and all supernatural activity and return forthwith to your place of origin or to the nearest convenient parallel dimension.
I'm sorry, I still find that funny. I can't help it. That's just how I am. Back to it. Remember, we're having some tech problems. For those that don't know, we got people that will listen and join in halfway through and try to figure out why isn't the app working or why isn't it working on the internet. So I do have to repeat and tell people on a regular basis. The question is, who cut off the ear of Malchus, the high priest's servant? Your answer, of course, is in John chapter 18, verse 10. If you know, you can text us text us 214-210-8483. 214-210-8483, or send an email, David at hemustincrease.org. Back to the text we're teaching on. Isn't it fun? Just like it's a regular show, right? Yeah, that's okay. There you go. Back to Psalm 62. We're picking it back up where David just said, my soul waits silently for God alone, for my expectation is from him. Verse 6, and hang on to your hats. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be moved. Wow. Verse 6 kind of slams the door on everything. The answer is always in the Lord. I don't care. It doesn't matter what any person says anywhere, ever, at any point. At any point. All of those brilliant scientists and even other theologians and political leaders and influence people and all that other rubbish, the answer is always the Lord. And the sooner we learn that, the better off we are in enjoying the graces and mercies that He's granted us to have on this side. On the other side, it's going to be lights out. But we do get bits and pieces of heaven and of grace of mercy here, and that comes from the Lord. In verse 6, he makes it clear, He only is my rock. In this one psalm, David has said only multiple times, and the reason that he's saying that is, this is my dependence on